Welcome to the online worship service of the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, or ERUUF as we like to say. My name is Reverend Jacqueline Brett, and whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, gender, whomever you love, and wherever you are in your spiritual journey, we welcome you here to this beloved community. If you're visiting with us online for the first or perhaps the second time, we invite you to find out more about who we are by using the link that will appear in the chat box at some point and will also appear at the end of the service. We invite everyone to join us directly after this service for virtual coffee hour. You can bring your own cup of coffee or tea, and using the link that will appear in the chat box on your screen, as well as on the screen at the very end of the service. You'll be whisked away to a Zoom room that will give you an opportunity to visit with old friends or to perhaps meet new ones. You'll receive specific instructions on how to do this at the end of the service. Today's worship service is led by all the ministers. That's myself, Reverend Care, and Reverend Stacy Grove, as we explore the realms of grief and loss during this service. As with all things that we're doing online these days, we ask for your patience and kind humor as we work out any technical difficulties we might encounter. Our services will continue online in the weeks ahead. Please consult our website, eruf.org, for information as this continues to evolve. Information on this and other events can be found in the weekly e-news or on our web calendar at eruf.org. You can also email office@eruf.org for more information or if you have any questions. So now let us center ourselves. From all of our various locations in North Carolina and around the country, let us center ourselves into this time and this place, centering our hearts, our energies, and our minds to this eternal now. Let us begin worship.
are by Kathleen McTeague, and the chalice lighting is by Brian Kiley. Both are slightly adapted. Here in this refuge of this Sabbath time, we turn our busy minds toward quiet and our full hearts toward one another.
We move together through the mysteries, the bright surprise of birth and the shadowed questions of death.
In our slow walk between the two, we will be wounded and we will be showered with grace, amazing, unending.
Even in our sorrows, we feel our lives cradled in holiness we cannot comprehend.
And though at times we each walk within a vast loneliness, the promise we offer here is that we do not walk alone. This is a holy time in which we gather. Here we are held, strengthened, and renewed.
The flame on a chalice, the flicker of a candle, the lamps of our own open faces in this place of silence and sounds, solemnity and joy. We make a sanctuary and claim our wholeness.
In times of darkness, we stumble toward the tiny flame. In times of cold, we seek the warming fire. In times of repression, we reach for the lamp of truth. In times of loss, we hope for the comforting light. In times of joy, we light a candle of celebration. Spirit of light, as we kindle this light, help us find what we need this day.
Our first song this morning is very familiar. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. So it's true, we're not together physically, but when we open our hearts, a larger vision, a larger love, a greater possibility comes to us at that time. We're physically apart, but there are these invisible lines of connections among us and between us. You might like to sing along at home, gathered here.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near.
Whether we're apart or together, our feelings go up and down. And sometimes a friend who accepts us just as we are is what we really need the most. Julia is going to share a story with us this morning about all of this. Good morning, Julia.
Good morning. My name is Julia Tyler, and I'm the Director of Religious Education at the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Well, we're still all at home, aren't we? I miss being with you all in person, but I feel glad we can still see each other on our Eve Zoom classes. I wonder how all of you are doing today. Sometimes we might feel like, yay, I still get to be home. And other times we might feel like, ugh, I'm still home. We might feel like this monkey. This is the story of the Grumpy Monkey by Suzanne Lang, illustrated by Max Lang. One wonderful day, Chimpanzee woke to discover that nothing was bright. The sun was too bright, the sky was too blue, and the bananas were too sweet. Jim was confused. What's going on? Maybe you're grumpy, suggested Norman from next door. Nah, I'm not grumpy, Jim insisted. On his walk, they met Miraboo. Jim's grumpy, said Norman. Why are you grumpy, Jim asked Miraboo. It's such a wonderful day. Grumpy? Me? I'm not grumpy, said Jim. But look how you're standing, Miraboo said. Yes, it's true, you're all hunched, said Norman. So Jim loosened up. Then he ran into Lemur on his walk. Jim's grumpy, Norman told Lemur. Why are you so grumpy, Jim? It's such a wonderful day, said Lemur. Grumpy? Me? I'm not grumpy, said Jim. Well, look at your eyebrows. Yep, you look grumpy, said Lemur. It's true, said Norman. You're all bunched up. So Jim raised his brow. Then he tripped over Snake. Uh-oh, said Norman. That's the last thing you need when you're feeling so grumpy. Grumpy? Me? I'm not grumpy, said Jim. Then why the frowns, said Snake. Think it's because he tripped over you, Norman whispered to the snake. So Jim put on a smile. Well, finally, Jim looked happy. But he didn't feel happy inside. Everyone wanted Jim to enjoy this wonderful day. You should sing with us, said the birds. Jim didn't feel like singing. You should swing with us. Come on, said the monkeys. Jim didn't feel like swinging. You should roll with us, said the zebras. Jim didn't feel like rolling. You should stroll with us, said the peacocks. Jim didn't feel like strolling. You should lie in the grass. You should stomp your feet. You should take a bath and make a splash. You should hug someone. You should laugh. So many you shoulds. You should just take a nap. You should eat old meat. Or some honey. You should jump, like me, up and down, said the frogs. You should sit in the sun like me, see? You should dance. But Jim didn't feel like doing any of that. Why are you so grumpy, Jim? Asked the others. It's such a wonderful day. I'm not grumpy, shouted Jim as he beat his chest, and he stormed off. Jim felt sorry, a little sorry for shouting at everybody, but mostly sorry for himself. Yes, I am grumpy, Jim sighed. And then just as he was starting to feel really sad, he came upon Norman. Norman was slumped. His eyebrows were bunched, and he was frowning. What's the matter? Are you grumpy? Asked Jim. No, I danced with Porcupine, said Norman. You okay? Asked Jim. Yeah, it hurts, but I'll probably feel better soon enough, said Norman. Are you still grumpy? Yeah, said Jim, but I'll probably feel better soon enough too. For now, I need to be grumpy. It's a wonderful day to be grumpy, said Norman, and Jim agreed. And he already felt a little bit better. The end.
This morning, we have created a worship space to give voice to the various losses that we've been experiencing, especially during these past several weeks. These losses, magnified by the collective losses permeating our community, our nation, and our world during this time, settle deep within our being. These losses have manifested in diverse ways for each one of us and for our ERUUF community. Most notably, as we gather for worship in the privacy of our homes rather than in our beautiful sanctuary. We will explore through story and music how these losses touch the very core of our being and invite us to go within. We ask you to take this journey with us today, and together, as beloved community, may we find healing and wholeness.
We begin with a poem. If the trees can keep dancing, so can I. It's a community poem created by many and compiled by Kwame Alexander and Rachel Martin of NPR. And I begin with part one. What I'm learning about grief is that it sits in the space between laughs, comes in the dark, steals the warmth from the bed covers, is a hauntingly familiar song, yet I can't remember the words. What I'm learning about grief is that it rolls like a heavy mist, settles into the crevices, lingers on the skin, visits, then visits again, lurking under my chair. And when I'm not watching, reaches out her tiny claws and bats my ankles. Grief sneaks up on you. You find yourself on your couch with a well of rage, living in the pit of your stomach and nowhere for it to go. And it chokes you. What I'm learning about grief is that it can come like a whisper or storm through loud as thunder. It leaves a hollow to be filled with a new planting. And when you wake for another day that feels oddly the same as the last, it crawls right back into your lap, an ocean of tears. So you vary the crawl with the butterfly, the backstroke with breaststroke. At some point, drowning is no longer an option. What I'm learning about grief is that it is a language. Suffering is its own speech. It will not go away just because you won't look it in the eye. This pandemic, this tragedy, this fulcrum of life is a shovel, unearthing secrets we wish would stay buried. I learn that I am ashamed. I love solitude. Hard times call for soft people. There is softness in stillness, in staying home, in distractions deleted, in a togetherness that stretches great distances.
It seems that we start almost every conversation with each other these days with, "How are you?" Someone asked me several weeks ago how I was doing, and the image that popped into my mind was of a bluebird. You know, they fly along and they've got this swoopy up and down kind of a flight pattern, at least for short distances. And I realized I had been like that too. I had been doing everything I needed. I was moving along. I was getting things done. And I hadn't really realized that from here to there, I was going up and down all the time, constantly. Except I had been ignoring the down parts, in part because, yes, I have been busy. I've been on a really steep learning curve, or maybe an inventing curve. There is no master plan for how to get through a pandemic. There was no memo that somebody had, you know, they had it all figured out. The rest of us didn't miss it. We're all making this up together as we go along. And it's kind of totally absorbing, like kids playing a great game and they lose track of time. And then bam, it's just right on to the next problem to figure out the next thing. There's just no time to notice that you're up and down. Except that's not really how human beings are designed to be. We can do a lot of things, and yes, we can go the far distance. We're capable of that, but there's a cost. And it's true that at the very same time, the cost is that other things are going on just below the surface. And when we're going that hard and that fast, it's hard to notice, and we miss a lot. I'd also say that I am a person who finds it really meaningful to live an examined life. So I tend to pay attention to what's going on inside myself. And I'm pretty comfortable with grief and sorrow and loss. I've had a fair amount of that, especially early in my life. And I learned early on the value of just turning and facing hard things, that there is a real comfort in that, and just noticing and naming what's really going on. So in this time, it has been so helpful to have colleagues to talk to. I am really lucky just to be able to tell someone else that sometimes when I stop working, I get flooded with sadness. It all comes flooding in. All that stuff just under the surface comes flooding when I stop sometimes. And what's been a real surprise to me is how much sometimes I just don't want to admit that sadness to myself. The poet Denise Levertov puts it like this. She says, grief, I should not treat you like a homeless dog who has come to the back door for a crust, a meatless bone. I should trust you. I should coax you into the house and give you your own corner, your own water dish. You think I don't know you've been living under my porch? You long for a real place. You need your name, your collar and tag. You need to consider my house your own, and me your person, and yourself my own dog. We are so good at ignoring these essential things. I am especially good at ignoring how grief has a cousin called anxiety, and how I had been totally ignoring my own anxiety. 2 weeks ago, my husband got sick, really sick. He's been out working all this time. His job requires him to be in and out of convenience stores because he supports the owners. And gas stations are essential services. And so he wears a mask and he washes his hands a lot. And for about a month so far, so good. I had mostly been at home and we're both doing everything we can to help flatten the curve, but he has to go to work and there wasn't anything that we could do about that. But I didn't realize just how much I wasn't thinking about it, how much I was in denial about my own anxiety, until a couple of weeks ago he got sick and his doctor sent him to get tested. And then here's what's really strange. While we were waiting for the results, I was shocked, just absolutely shocked to realize that at that point, I was not worried or afraid. I was relieved. Maybe I've truly learned that it really is not worth it to play what if. But I had done that so much that I had also been ignoring how I was so deeply, deeply worried about him. So much that I was actually relieved that I could finally let go of that particular worry when he went for testing. We were astonished when his test came back negative and really, really glad. But I had been relieved for over 24 hours by that point. Anxiety and grief are both really weird. They are not always these huge things that overwhelm us and pin us down. Sometimes one or the other shows up like a stray dog, unloved, shut out, hoping that we will let it in. What I forget when I am in the midst of overwhelming fear is that these unwelcome strays always, always travel with love. And deep, true love flows best through me and through my life when I stop denying their existence. When I do that, I get the wholeness of my life back. Yes, there is anxiety and grief, and there's also solace and love and joy, always, because they're inseparable. These things always travel together. And now Jacqueline has the morning's meditation for us.
Dear love, residing at the core of our being, we ask to be gently held during this time of challenge and difficulty visited upon the earth. Love, light our way as we traverse the paths of illness and of death, whether among those we know or those we do not know. Be with those who stand at the front edges of this catastrophe. Give them wisdom, give them skill, give them comfort, give them peace. Give them all they need to see their way through. Be with those who suffer what we ourselves do not suffer. May they have healing. May they have sustenance. May they have comfort. May they have peace. May they have all they need to see their way through. Love, give us focus as we move through our daily lives in new ways. Work your way through us day by day, hour by hour, allowing us to understand what we might not have understood before, to see what we have not seen before, to take action we might not have considered before. Love, crack open our hearts. Help us to give voice and name to our sorrows and loss, grief and despair, struggle and suffering. Allow us to open to compassion, mercy, and grace for self and those we encounter. Love, protect us, guide us, be with us in this eternal now, forever and ever. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be. We now transition to a music and video that is actually also a community offering. The video has words by members of this community, words of the losses and grief that some of our own members are experiencing at this time. And it also has the music of the great Jesse Norman singing, "Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child."
I continue now with the second half of the poem, "If the trees can keep dancing, so can I." Grief shows up unannounced, so you burrow the ache into a carefully guarded well and wonder if that means the memories have to go there too. What I'm learning about grief is that it can turn you into someone you don't want to be, can help you become someone you never thought you could be. Is that it transcends color, race, religion, gender? It's an old lover that won't leave, trying to hold your hand again. That it aches in the arches of feet. That its mother is loss, its father change. Make room for it. Is that tiny losses add up? The missed first party my son was to attend, the school days he yearns for with his friends. I tell him it will be over soon. What I'm learning about grief, I learned a long time ago. Knead grief as you would bread. Weave grief as you would thread. There is no vaccine against it. We can't develop antibodies for it. It's something I have, and it's something you have. But in these times, it's something we have. It is anger and denial. It is chaotic laughter from splintered memories. It is jagged cries and single tears. It is numb and indifferent. It is the pinprick of light promising a slow semblance of normality returned. What I'm learning about grief is to acknowledge its presence, its many forms and guises, then to use it while reaching out, connected to everyone who is braving this same storm. What I'm learning about grief is that it is still learning about me. Learning that I am strong and resilient. If the trees can keep dancing, so can I.
Several years ago, I was a hospital chaplain assigned to a cardiac unit, neonatal intensive care, and women's oncology. During my time there, I daily encountered the heartrending grief of individuals and their loved ones who grappled with death. But even more than the extremities of death were the many patients and families who wrestled with the worry, loss, and grief visited upon them by the impact of illness. Loss of a limb or an internal organ, loss of good health, loss of the capacity to continue in a career or job because of illness, loss of the way things used to be in relationships and in life. A great part of my role was to help them give voice to this, to make meaning of it, to not minimize their sorrow, but to lament their loss. The psychologist Frances Weller recently said, "It is our unexpressed sorrows, the congested stories of loss when left unattended, that block our access to the soul. To be able to freely move in and out of the soul's chambers, we must first clear the way. This requires finding meaningful ways to speak of sorrow." Though I had been assigned to women's oncology during those chaplaincy days, when I received my own diagnosis of cancer, it never occurred to me to grieve. My prognosis seemed good. I had great medical care. I was stunned to be sure that I, who had considered myself strong and healthy, had such an illness, but it never occurred to me to ask, why me? I was not angry or upset with God, nor did I shake my fists at the universe. I was concerned enough about my health. However, I knew of others who were far worse off than I. So I awakened each morning with my heart set on gratitude. I wrote poetry and prayers of thanksgiving and focused my energies on that half of my glass which was full, and that life was still full of promise, even if the road that lay ahead was challenging. But then came the day when I was told additional tests were needed because it was quite possible that things were not going as well as everyone had hoped. What? With so many medical intrusions upon my body, good patient that I was, I realized it had no longer occurred to me that things might not go well. The test turned out to be just fine, but the half-empty portion of my glass came into focus and could not seem to go away. Uncomfortable side effects occurred from my treatments, and then we were all told the world was in the middle of a life-threatening pandemic, and people like me were most at risk. I thought of Maya Angelou, who, when traumatized as a child, simply stopped speaking. I didn't know why, but I too wanted to stop speaking. Stop moving, stop doing, stop thinking. I wanted to sit down in the dust like Job in the Hebrew Bible and tear my clothes and pour ashes on my head. I thought of my grandmother who on some evenings would sit on her South Carolina porch and rock and moan, singing sorrowful, wordless songs. Only a child, I stood off in the distance listening, wondering about the thing I heard in her voice, which I did not understand. I knew not to ask, that it was best to quietly listen. In the Africana Bible, Wilma Ann Bailey says that this moaning and groaning of sparsely worded tunes is an African American tradition in response to suffering, an expression of grief in a way that does not leave room for misunderstanding because the reasons for the sadness is not formed into words. And this is exactly what I now wanted, a space where I could just rock and moan because I had no words, felt I could not speak or give voice to the present moment. I was choked with grief. No one in my personal life had died, and if I was careful, perhaps I too would not die. But I began to realize I had never given voice to the personal feelings of loss from cancer or all else that was going on in my world. I felt I should not complain, but be brave and strong when I compared myself to others who were far worse off. My therapist asked, "Have you ever before experienced anything of this magnitude in your life?" I admitted I had not. So I made space for grief to descend upon me like a wave. Grief for myself, for the global trauma of a pandemic and all that it has wrought. Grief for family members, for friends I worry about, folks who are ill, a friend whose brother died from the virus, and people I'm concerned about all over the place who I do not even know. Grief about systemic issues and health disparities that I, by the very nature of who I am, know that I am caught in. It is my practice to live from a place of thanksgiving, to seek out those daily places to seek out daily those places where gratitude resides and to give voice to them. What I've come to know in a personal way is that in addition to praise and thanksgiving, we must also lament. Rather than being choked by grief, to instead give voice to all the losses, whatever they might be, to grieve them and move forward on a pathway of making meaning of them. Through lamentation, my voice has returned. I know I don't need to be strong or brave. I just need to be me. What I'm learning about grief is that it is still learning about me. If the trees can keep dancing, so can I. Amen. Ashe. May it be so. Our next song is How Can I Keep From Singing, performed by the A Cappella Academy Choir.
How can I keep from singing?
How can we keep from singing? The theologian Howard Thurman talks about the growing edge. This is what he says. Look well to the growing edge. All around us, worlds are dying and new worlds are being born. All around us, life is dying and life is being born. The fruit ripens on the tree. The roots are silently at work in the darkness of the earth against a time when there shall be new leaves, fresh blossoms, green fruit. Such is the growing edge. It is the extra breath from the exhausted lung, the one more thing to try when all else has failed, the upward reach of life when weariness closes in on all endeavor. This is the basis of hope in moments of despair, the incentive to carry on when times are out of joint and all have lost their reason, the source of confidence when worlds crash and dreams whiten into ash. The birth of a child, life's most dramatic answer to death. This is the growing edge incarnate. Look well, therefore, to the growing edge.
My reflection, lost and found, finding self again, but different on the other side of loss. Recently, the daily numbers of COVID-19 deaths became personal for me. I experienced 3 deaths within 5 days, each representing a significant aspect of my life. A dear aunt who represents the last of a generation before me. A friend from a transformative time of personal growth in my own life. And a family member through marriage. This triple whammy of loved ones lost, especially within such a short time frame, cracked me open. I could not participate in their funerals due to travel restrictions and funeral limitations at this time. Once I recovered from the shock of the news, I recognized how important it is for me to see the obituary for each person. Not simply to see with my eyes or to read aloud, but to print a hard copy with their photo, placing it on my altar as I lit a candle for each. I so desired, yes, needed that tangible touch of reality, since I could not be present for the ritual that honors one's life and death simultaneously. Many of you are aware that I like to give hugs. I really miss that important sensory touch. It is troubling for me not to be able to extend a hand or to reach my arms out to another who is hurting, or to celebrate special moments in one's life. Most recently, it has been even more challenging for me not to receive a hug from those close to me who want to comfort me in my grief. Pierre de Chardin, a 20th century French philosopher and Jesuit priest, said that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Some of you may resonate well with this, and others perhaps not quite so easily. Yet I believe that my life experiences are what shape me and mold me, not only into who I have been, but also who I have become, and as well, who I'm invited to become even now. Each experience propels me to another depth of understanding, of personal and spiritual growth. So this recent experience of mine has been an opportunity to grow, to experience, to learn. What is being revealed at this time about me, about my relationships, about this planet, and the many aspects of social, cultural, economic, and political constructs that are being shaken up during these extraordinary circumstances? Those of you who have participated with me in the saging work these past few years understand how we can hold on to old story as we've perceived it, or we can choose consciously to revisit and reframe our story in light of new insights. We can recontextualize our story as we glean new awareness of the what and the how and the why of those experiences, so that we are propelled beyond ourselves, pushed to our growing edge. So with these losses, I chose to engage more fully with spiritual practices, meditative walking in the natural world. In particular, I've been walking an outdoor labyrinth, one that I've frequented for almost 20 years. The labyrinth, with its twists and turns, opens the space for that moment in the fabric of time when we suddenly and briefly become aware that we have made a deeper connection with the universe, or that which is greater than our individual self. I recalled some of the biblical stories of wandering in the wilderness before becoming a people, parables of lost coin, lost sheep, the prodigal son. The theme of being lost through that experience of loss, going within, coming to oneself, finding oneself anew. Each time I walked the labyrinth path, I honored the feelings and the questions that arose while I reflected upon each relationship. What am I to learn from this experience? What is being uncovered with new perception? How can I touch the pain of my discomfort in this grief? The triple piercing of the heart with these significant losses has allowed me to experience a deeper sorrow for that which was left undone, while at the same time to honor what was so beautiful and loving in each. The convergence of these relationships, broken and mended, has given me the opportunity to reassess significant life experiences, to honor the story that is emerging, and to find healing. I believe there is always opportunity and potential for some new awareness that propels us farther into what and who we are to become. We can go through this time of wandering between what was and what is, the in-between spaces, where we as community can encourage one another along the way. As we move through these experiences, these stories that make up my life, those that make up yours, those we share together, we persevere. We can come out on the other side. We can find ourselves stronger together on the growing edge. I see here an opportunity for us to reshape ourselves as community as we engage in unified action for goodness. It is the innate part of our being to live out our call to serve one another with love, compassion, self-compassion, and kindness. This is truly an opportunity for our hearts to resonate more with the one heart of the greater love. Will you join with us as we together step bravely and look well to our growing edge? I invite you to reflect upon these questions as we pause now for a few moments.
It's so great when we feel connected to each other. And so often we feel connected when we give to each other. There were a few stories in e-news this week. I hope you saw them. Audrey Green invited people to help her make masks. And over the last several weeks together, they've made over 3,000 masks, cotton masks. Just amazing. There's also in e-news this really sweet video of ERUUF at springtime that the gardening team made. And they're inviting people to come out, self-distance, and just get some exercise and spend some time in nature and maybe be of service with them to the larger fellowship, help keep our grounds beautiful. So it's a great invitation and a great way to connect. And I wrote something this week just saying thank you to everyone who has contributed so generously. You really care about each other. We care about each other. And people have been sending money to the discretionary fund to help other fellow members in need. And it's been amazing to receive that generosity, just to see it coming in. And so I want to just say thank you to everyone who's given. I want to remind people that if you're in need, we're here in all of these various ways to help you get connected, to help you find your way forward if you need that. And just a reminder that none of us is alone. We're all in this together. Our offering is going to be accompanied right now by a song. It's a piece called To the River by a group called Down Like Silver. Here's Lelena to introduce it to us now.
1, 2, 3. Good morning, ERUUF. This is Lelena and Zora. In 2016, we lost my father to ALS, Luis Felipe Romero, sooner than we thought we would. And Zora, who you just saw, came into this world sooner than we thought she would. My brother Louis introduced the song To the River by Down Like Silver to us. And it became such a prayer for us in that time. Michael and I sang it at my father's memorial service, and Jocelyn and I are blessed to share it with you this morning.
we express our gratitude for all the gifts so generously given in support of ERUUF's mission and ministry. And I want to personally express my gratitude to all of you for all the many, many ways you have shown me love and support over these past several months as I've been on my unique journey. And as I continue on it, I really am so grateful to all of you. This is my last Sunday service with you all for now, at least until August, when I return from extended medical leave. And so with that, I bid you adieu for now today, and I will be holding you all in my hearts. I hope you will continue to hold me in your hearts as well. As I told someone the other day, all prayers, lit candles, and whatever else you do is welcome. So I look forward to seeing you all in the months ahead.
And we look forward to seeing you too, Jacqueline. We fully support you taking this time. We're really, everyone I've heard from is just thrilled that you're taking care of yourself this way. Great modeling, good ministry. We'll see, we're holding your space and we're eager for you to be back. So this morning we have traced a path from denial and its unconscious forms, and we've turned toward loss and grief, naming this and claiming it as our own. On this path this morning, we've traveled through the territory of the heart, moving from lost to found, from bereft to new possibility, not only for ourselves, but for our community. And as we do, we find ourselves connected to everyone and everything there is. Hear these words of blessing and benediction now.
Often we are found in our grief and comforted, calmed by some kindness, brought alive again by beauty that catches us undefended.
Even when the sun is most thin and far, even at the hour the storm is at its height, renewal nests within sorrow, love abides, even beyond anger, beyond death.
We are held in an embrace, invisible but infinite, moving with all creation between wholeness and fragmentation, moving always toward the one.
Love, do not let us go.
Those beautiful words were by a woman named Barbara Pescan, shared with us by our own Jacqueline and Stacy. Our last song this morning brings us back up. It's a joyful song. It's Hallelujah by the group Mamuz. It's sung today by Lelena and Jocelyn.
Every time I feel this way, this old familiar sinking, I will lay my troubles down by the water, where the river will never run dry. Hallelujah. So shall you receive. So take from me these troubles, bring me sweet release. Where Good